This episode is sponsored by Swagelok.
Managing hydrogen safely and cost-effectively while meeting performance benchmarks and reducing downtime is critical to building a sustainable clean energy future. That's why industry leaders trust Swagelok. With Swagelok, your team is a lot bigger. You have access to hundreds of fluid systems experts around the world who can keep you and your systems online and operating efficiently. Learn more at swagelok.com/alongside you.
Hello and welcome to the 1895 podcast with me, Thomas D.
And me, Rob Cockerell.
And Rob, we're here again, sticking on the theme of hydrogen, aren't we? We've been having a bit of a deep dive into the hydrogen industry at the minute, but a necessary one.
Absolutely. And we did say that we had some exciting episodes coming up. We said we'd talk about case studies and kind of lighthouse projects in hydrogen. Tick that off, Tom. Mm-hmm. And we said we'd get into technology and innovation, didn't we?
We did, and that's just what we're doing today with Danny Burg, the lead solutions specialist at Swagelok. Looking forward to getting into this conversation with him and maybe touching on the side of the industry which we don't cover enough or as often.
Absolutely, and very much a theme of boots on the ground, as we like to say. We're going to get into what's actually needed in the market, what the customer needs are, where we go with that. So yeah, really good episode coming up.
Oh, and with that brief introduction, Danny, welcome to the 1895 podcast. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you guys for taking the time with me, and thanks for inviting me.
And perhaps before we get too in-depth into this conversation, you want to give us a bit of your background in the hydrogen industry and your time at Swagelok too.
Great, yeah. So I'm from the Netherlands, where a lot of net zero projects are initiated in the heart of Europe. I live close to Rotterdam, close to the industry, and I've been 30 years more in the industry already. I joined Swagelok Corporate after a career as an application engineer in the instrumentation integrator. Joined Swagelok in 2007 as a field engineer, and later on I managed the team of a global team of field engineers for especially the clean energy market focus. At the moment, solution specialist, a lead role. And I work with 80 engineers all around the world that are trained in a training program within Swagelok focused on clean energy applications and solutions.
Being based in Rotterdam, very fitting since we've just got back from there, Rob.
Yeah, fantastic place for innovative decarbonisation conversations. Danny, before we get into the heart of our topic, I couldn't help but notice you said you've been with Swagelok since 2007. I mean, almost 20 years. So tell us a bit about how the hydrogen and the energy landscape has shifted really in that time. What have you seen? What are your observations?
Very good, yeah. And hydrogen is a very familiar gas for many years. We're familiar from it from aerospace times or any other, refinery processes where hydrogen is very well used. So it's not new for us. And what we focus on is really like to contain that gas really well with our products, fittings to valves to complete systems. So what we've seen and the dynamic in the market is really around that reduce the carbon emissions, of course, and we see a big shift into the focus on how to produce hydrogen in more cleaner ways, solar, wind power, feed or hydropower. So we see there's new customers coming on into the market. When I joined, we as Swagelok focus on in clean energy. From origin, we focus on clean energy transportation sector. Where compressed natural gas was used as a cleaner fuel compared to diesel. And a step further is that hydrogen use, so it's kind of zero emissions transport. And with that, we thought, hey, let's cluster that with the production of hydrogen, especially because there's a kind of same technology. You see the same gas, of course, but also the pressures and certification requirements on material composition. So yeah, we see a big shift on a laser focus on hydrogen. At the moment in the market, there's a big stagnant, of course, in like investments in cleaner energies. The dynamics are very special at the moment in the world of economics, and that shift has brought us to a point that we needed growth actually in the market, or we changed our focus a little bit back to the transportation sector.
Fantastic. Great to get almost 2 decades quite literally in the field, Tom.
Yeah,
and I would say as well, things are a bit up and down with economics and energy at the moment, but the one constant is that need for the right engineered solutions.
And also picking up on that, can't quite believe 2007 is nearly 2 decades ago.
You're telling me.
Let's now get into today's discussion, Danny. I'm going to tee this up slightly. In the clean energy market, a lot of people will think product first. We've had many conversations, especially on this podcast, with Swagelok, with other of your colleagues, and that makes sense really, because they are looking to solve a problem within their application. But those same customers, they might also need help diagnosing a problem or designing a solution, or training their teams perhaps. So can you tell us a little bit about how these types of service solutions can help the wider industry?
Great, yeah. We always say customers don't know what they don't know. It's something, it's easy to look up a product in a catalog or get some directions on the selection of products. But we're more behind, like, what is an application doing for a certain process or auxiliary around the process. And we think the services, especially for the clean energy applications, there's solutions like we start with training. So it's like we help with best practices, design recommendations, for example, and train that, or our engineers can help with a sound design for a small molecule like hydrogen is system solutions, and with that, behind that is the strength could be like if suppliers think about one-stop shopping, for example. We can bundle products into solutions. But also the worldwide network might help, where, you don't know what you don't know, what's happening around the world in solutions, for example, or best practices. So our team really collaborates around the world. And even for some bigger accounts, there's a benefit in having all the best practices and solutions in one place. That's helpful in the way of like reducing their own resources maybe, and get some extra capability. Extra capability could be like you focus more on your core activity, your end product as maybe a package or a system, and make that as safe and reliable as possible with the knowledge that a supplier can bring in next to product.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, it really is that service side of the industry that maybe we don't look at enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd like to ask Danny, does Swagelok see different behaviours across different market segments, such as production, on vehicle or infrastructure? I mean, I'm thinking here, knowledge gaps, budget constraints, and so on.
Yeah, good point. Now, everything almost relies on like the infrastructure. When there's infrastructure in place, it's feasible to expand on like vehicles that can be fueled or produce more hydrogen, and you can distribute that over those infrastructures. So that's a dependency is really on like funding for infrastructure. Economic scaling, by political uncertainty is uncertain at the moment. But electrolyzers, the production of hydrogen, those projects struggle a little bit at the moment. So and what we see in the market is as well. There's new players coming in. There's people with oil and gas experience, and sure, pressure ratings apply, but not the product is not always very compliant in the way of material composition, or it's small molecule gas only instead of compressed natural gas. So that knowledge is coming into the market via OEMs or the package vendors. And what they tend to do is like maybe save time by copy and paste old specs, maybe oil and gas specifications. And they can be improved really. Their systems can be improved with more reliable product or more available product. So that's a dynamic we see when the market is trying to bring in the best designs, the best solutions. So and with that, we think there's a knowledge gap. So knowledge gap with this emerging industry where oil and gas specifications come in. Big focus should be on like quality and safety and reliability of those systems. That's challenging. It's challenging sometimes for maybe end customers who use those systems. And what about the future? How to maintain those systems, and reliable systems is much less maintenance. So.
Well, let's focus on that for a moment. You mentioned, companies, new players coming into the market. So we've talked about segments, but let's drill down into each customer. Each customer might need a different level of service, of course, from simply supplying products all the way through to, those design needs. But I guess the question would be, what are the different needs that you see in the market? Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, different markets. It starts simply with product. So they need product, but what can also help is a partnership. A supplier, which companies can really rely on and be supported by in the right product selection, which available product, compliant product. The material composition is sound and complete according an ASTM norm, and avoid hydrogen enrichment in the future. That's part of it. And installing a system and using product is one. Doing it in the right way is two. If you have some support, those companies have support like doing commissioning before something is sent out or at site turned on. That could be really beneficial in the way of like how a project is installed and finalized. So I hope that answers your question a little bit in that space.
It does, certainly does.
Well, so that's the what, I suppose. But I'd now like to ask you about the where, because this podcast, it reaches, I guess, a variety of individuals across the market, whether it be those just interested, looking from the outside in, or maybe equipment manufacturers, producers, anything like that. So what customer roles do you see that are most impacted by a need for service?
Yeah. It's very different roles. When you start on a technical basis, it's a mechanical engineer, for example, who can be helped by services. Plant managers benefit from services, knowing conditions of hydrogen production plant, for example, and how to improve safety and reliability in those systems. And it's underestimated, the activity of like using those systems where hydrogen is produced or distributed. Companies probably don't know sometimes, or they don't know. They have a certain culture, and if there's a third party helping them to look into their kitchen and help with like improvements on safety, reliability, or efficiency of a system, where they can work more efficient for gas systems, for example, that's areas of improvement immediately. One other area of interest is really like project managers. What about ramping up your production? You have an electrolyzer, or you have like a power unit fed by hydrogen with a fuel cell. You generate electricity. Ramp up production for those kind of skids. It is a challenge sometimes for those companies. What even supplier can help with packages, smaller solutions, subsystems that can be implemented right away, and you don't have purchasing or project management doesn't have to think about anything on product level anymore. Now that's all set. We have designs made and agreed on, and the subsystems come in at a certain phase of the project. And again, project management can focus on their core businesses of getting those systems delivered ready for their customers. So.
Sure, thank you, Danny. Now, I'd like to pick up on a point that you made earlier when Rob asked you a question, and that's about the training within the clean energy market and the training gap. I guess it feels like a big gap at the minute. It must be said. People know that they need it, but they're not quite sure where to turn. I'm aware of some of the training that's out there. In fact, we held our own class of H2. But what types of training is there out there that our listeners should be on the lookout for?
Yeah, what I see in the market is very specific training. It's very deep on the level of topics like hydrogen or oxygen safety. There's chemistry classes where it goes into directions of science. These are very good, but it takes you months to fulfill them. Not that is it's great information, but not always applicable for everybody. Think about the installer or a designer or a maintenance engineer or a project management, where you need a basic general information. I would recommend look for the total package. Think about the material knowledge. What's the material science of why use stainless steel 316 with a 12% nickel content, for example. Installation practices of tubing systems, for example. Product selection. What's the right product for hydrogen applications, and what are design practices for general hydrogen use. And general hydrogen knowledge. So if that's in one package, there's a 1 day or 1.5 day training for tube system installers, for example, or for designers. I would look out for that. Swagelok has that offering in their program. So we've that's a start for us, I think, to help with sharing expertise with our customers.
Sure, and we hope the 1895 podcast in this episode is also a source of knowledge for our listeners too, don't we?
We do, and also awareness. And I guess I'd like to pick you up on something, Danny, is perception, if we can. I mean, we note, of course, that you've been working with your team to develop this training program that includes market information. We heard last week from Extreme H,
yes,
as a high-profile case study in hydrogen vehicles and technologies, of course. Danny, do you think we need more case studies, more lighthouse projects that help with that awareness and that perception, and of course that education? Because it feels like we've got a big gap in skills, but a big gap in awareness and understanding as well.
Yeah, good point. Collaboration is the key here. We learn together, isn't it? So I'm definitely a fan of collaborating with other authorities or groups like this. So we share our expertise and share our knowledge. We don't have to invent the wheel the second time then, of course. So I'm sure that drives the industry to better solutions for sure.
Fantastic.
Collaboration is the new innovation.
Absolutely. We keep hearing that, don't we?
We do. Danny, thank you so much for joining us today. What does the rest of your day look like as the lead solution specialist at Swagelok?
Yeah, great. We're making plans for next year, what to focus on. So we're looking ahead. We in different conferences. I was in India 2 weeks ago. We learned that there's a lot of compressed natural gas expanding still, the network infrastructure. And so we all take that information now and creating plans for next year. So I have a call next now for catching up with my peers on that. So it's fun to work in this dynamic industry. This is part of my job. So.
Well, busy day ahead, so we won't keep you any longer, Danny, but thank you so much for joining us on the 1895 podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
And our thanks to Danny van der Burg of Swagelok. That really interesting conversation, wasn't it? And great to catch up with Swagelok again.
Always a pleasure, yep. And as we said right at the start, I think we delivered against that whole boots on the ground mission there.
Yeah, we really did. We've been on the theme of hydrogen, as we said at the top of this podcast, for a few weeks now. So perhaps next week we should skew away from that slightly.
Yeah, not too far. We'll go to another molecule, shall we say, that's integral to this whole decarbonisation effort. We'll go to CO2, shall we?
We'll go to CO2, and that will in fact be our live recording from the Rotterdam CO2 Summit, which we have just got back from, which we referenced in that interview with Danny. So look out for that episode next week. But in the meantime, do please like, follow, and share the 1895 podcast. This episode is sponsored by Swagelok.
Managing hydrogen safely and cost-effectively while meeting performance benchmarks and reducing downtime is critical to building a sustainable clean energy future. That's why industry leaders trust Swagelok. With Swagelok, your team is a lot bigger. You have access to hundreds of fluid systems experts around the world who can keep you and your systems online and operating efficiently. Learn more at swagelok.com/alongside you.